Welcome to the very first Josh Gottheil Memorial Resiliency Symposium here at Siteman Cancer Center. I will be your host for the evening. My name is Jade Harrell. I am a speaker, radio and television host and producer, and a tremendous fan of Siteman Cancer Center. I'm excited to be here with you tonight to help kick off the start of what I'm sure will be many more great programs to come. And first, we want to acknowledge all of the care providers with us today from Siteman, BJC, and its member hospitals, including Barnes Jewish and St. Louis Children's Hospital, home of Siteman Kids at Washington University. We also want to thank some other special people who are with us today. With their ongoing efforts, this symposium would not be possible. They are Diane Gottheil and Lisa Gottheil, the team behind the Josh Gottheil Memorial Fund for Lymphoma Research. Diane is the mother of Josh, and Lisa is his sister. Josh is a very special young man that we'll learn more about later in the program. Our thanks to you for attending the event and to the Josh Gottheil Memorial Fund for making it happen. All right, so all the nurses in the house say, ow. All right. And for everyone who loves and appreciates them, say yeah. Yeah. All right, so if you're feeling good like a care provider should, somebody say, oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Tonight we are gathered here to celebrate you, the backbone of this great institution. Your tireless dedication and care to your patients, their caregivers, and support to our physicians is not only appreciated, but an essential part of Siteman maintaining its standing as an international leader in cancer treatment, research, and prevention. She has a pardon. Okay, see? That works just fine. But they're an essential part of Siteman maintaining its standing as an international leader in cancer treatment, research, and prevention. So with stress, emotional exhaustion, and constant demands stacking up daily, we're here tonight to share that we're all in this together. We will discuss some vital tools and strategies for being and remaining resilient in the oncology healthcare environment. Are you ready? All right. Before we introduce our fabulous speakers, I have one housekeeping note to share. There's a folder that you've received, and it is in your continuing nursing education evaluation form is the name of it. We ask that you please complete this at the conclusion of the evening and then return it to the registration tables in the lobby before leaving. That will help us continue our programs and keep making them amazing. You will then receive your certificate for completion, along with the fulfilling knowledge and tools that you'll receive tonight. So tonight we have with us three individuals who will offer their unique perspectives on the stress oncology nurses face. One as a fellow nurse and your fearless leader, Christina Longnecker. All right. One as a caregiver, Diane Gottheil. And the other through decades of speaking on the topic of resiliency, Eileen McDarr, whom you'll meet in a few minutes. Now, to set the mood and to kick things off, I would first like to welcome Kimberly Acuna, Mind and Body Program Coordinator at MOVE by BJC, who will walk us through a brief meditation technique called Active Mind Meditation and get us prepared to receive all this wonderful information tonight. If you'll come on up, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. You can hear me? Okay. So every hour of every day is how I started this. And then I realized, no, it's every second of every minute of every hour of every day you give. And you give. And you give to your patients. You give to their families. You give to their loved ones, doctors, colleagues, your community, your loved ones, and you give everything you have. Piece by piece, you take from your one constant, and that's you. Your time, your space, your energy, everything. And yet you still have to bounce back, and you want to give 110% every single time. And so my role at MOVE is to try to create a program to reconnect what pieces of you there are left. So this evening, I'm going to show you one way to do this without having to take away from anyone else. And more importantly, because we all know that if one person, if one thing has to suffer, it's going to be you. And so this is something that you can use so that you don't have to take away from anyone, and just as, and mostly important, you. So I'm going to walk you through something. It's 6 easy steps. It can be done in less than 5 minutes. Realistically, it will take 5 minutes here. You can do it on your own in 3 minutes. And if you don't remember at all what I'm talking about, but you have this vague idea that something happened at the beginning, in your packet, there is a half sheet, and it's called Active Meditation Practice. So you don't need to necessarily look at it now, but just know that that's in there for you to use later for reference. So with that, if everyone could, do me a kindness, and I'd like you to all get comfortable in your seat. And by comfortable, I don't mean reclined back schlumping, but I mean if you can please find nice posture, right? Shoulders over hips. If your feet can come to the ground, separate your feet so they're not crossed or doing the thing, but try to plant your feet down, toes face your version of forward, wherever forward is from where you are. So once you're there, take a deep breath in, everybody. Breathe in and let it go. Close your eyes, or if you'd prefer not to, you can just drop your gaze to the edge of the table and let everything you see get a little bit fuzzy. Take another breath in and breathe out. Continue to breathe in and out on your own. Right? Not at the pace of your neighbor, the loud breather behind you. Full breath in. Let it go. If possible, breathe in and out through your nose. If not, do what you got to do. Try to expand the belly, the ribs. Feel the constriction in the throat. Exhale. Again, breathe in. Feel the torso expand. And breathe out. Continue to breathe in and out, keeping the shoulders relaxed, the jaw relaxed. Now I want you to choose a word: joy, love, happiness, dream, inspire. Choose one of the words: joy, love, happiness, dream, inspire. Repeat this word to yourself. Silently, slowly. As you repeat this word, silently spell the word to yourself. As you spell each letter to yourself, say the letter. Continue to spell the word one letter at a time, saying each letter to yourself. And I want you to choose a font. And in your mind, write this word one letter at a time in this font, repeating it again and again. Now choose a color for this word. Write this letter, each letter in this font, in this color, silently saying each letter one at a time. Color, font, spell the word, say the word in your head one letter at a time. Now, choose a background color. Choose a wallpaper. Now I want you to write that word one letter at a time, in your color, in your font, saying each letter of the word on your wallpaper. Take a deep breath in. Open your mouth, let it go. Breathe in. Blink your eyes open, exhale. It feels different in here. So this is something you can do. It's okay if your mind runs in the opposite direction and then you're like, oh yeah, I come back. It's okay if you start thinking about some other thing that maybe has to do vaguely with the word, maybe it's not related. But doing this, whether it's in your 60 seconds of pretend downtime, which is another way of saying running to the bathroom, sitting on the seat and just closing the door, or when you're working really hard on your computer, but I don't know what the screen is, this is something you can do so that when you give and you give and you give, you can give to yourself too. So thank you, everybody.
That was awesome. You could actually feel the difference in the energy of the room. How many of you picked joy? Nice. Love? They're giving high fives, like, yes, we were in sync. Love? All right. Inspire? Dream? Fantastic. And what was the other one? See why we need these exercises more and more? How many of you actually saw a handwriting the word, or was it keyboard? Technology's messed us up with that whole idea. We're gonna have to incorporate some methods to really make that work. But by the time I got to wallpaper, I was fine. I'm so glad you took the time to go through that exercise, embrace it, and keep it for yourself. And thank you so very much for that meditation. Kimberly is coming up next. Kimberly, thank you for that calming meditation. And now, our fearless leader and fellow care provider, Christina Longnecker, Vice President of Oncology Services for Siteman Cancer Center and the brainchild behind today's events. Christina, come on up. Let's welcome her.
Can everybody hear me okay? So, wow, thank you for tonight. I am humbled. I am excited, full of joy and pride, just by seeing all these faces in the room tonight. So thank you all for showing up for a very important reason. Thank you, Jade. So, as we know as nurses, there are many people on our patient's team. We all play a role Not all team members are front and center, but they are deserving of acknowledgement. One of them is Courtney Weeks. She's not with us tonight. She's Siteman's Executive Director of Development. She was instrumental in connecting people to make this event happen, perfectly aligning wishes of our generous donor and the needs of our oncology nurses, all of you. Please give her and her teammate, Siteman Director of Development, Nina Allhart, a hand they do to advance patient care. Thank you, Dina. I also want to thank our planning committee for this event. Would the members please rise and be acknowledged? It's a multidisciplinary team. I don't see anybody standing. Oh, there's one. Okay, here we go. It's a combination of our human resources department, marketing, clinical support, or educational team members, all that's necessary to provide patients the treatments they deserve. They all deserve a round of applause as well. Thank you. And I have volunteers moving forward. I'm looking at you, Jody. Yay. All great stuff. And while he's not here with us this evening, I also want to acknowledge the support of Dr. Timothy Eberlein. He is our Siteman Cancer Center director, has been for the last 20 years since the naming of Siteman. November 2nd is our 20th anniversary for Siteman Cancer Center, so just so you're all aware of that, more events are coming. He is a partner in our delivery of care to all of our patients within Siteman. Again, it takes a team, and our leader is an integral part of this process. Lastly, I want to make sure we acknowledge our CNO and Vice President of our Patient Care Services here at BJH, Angeline Peters-Lewis. She was not able to be here tonight. She sends her regrets, but she said she is with us in spirit, just so you know. We all know that caring for patients is some of the most rewarding and fulfilling work anyone can do. And for those of us who have been on the front lines, we know how it fulfills a sense of a mission, a call beyond ourselves. We also know that it can be draining, physically, emotionally, spiritually at times. Provide not only clinical care, but psychological support, not just to the patients, but their family members as well. You know, when you go home after a particularly difficult shift, I think you can all close your eyes and think about that shift. Stretched to meet the needs of all your patients, and for whatever reason you were not at your peak. You may have lost a special patient, and you know it will take some time for you to heal. You go home, your team is there, you have a spouse or a significant other, you have kids or a friend who knows you like a sibling. They want to do all they can to help you, but it's not quite the same. And they appreciate it, and you appreciate it, but they don't know exactly what you're going through. Only someone who's been in the same spot you are actually knows that. Sometimes only you know what you're going through. At those times, we need to take care of ourselves. And today, we hope you learn some helpful techniques for doing that, because ultimately, we know that we need to be there for our patients. And to do that, we need to keep our heads and hearts in the game. We need to persevere and to be our best for the next patient, their family, and for everybody we touch along the way. I hate to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's been about 20 years or so since I've been at the bedside. However, to this day, I can still see their faces. Some who made it, thankfully, some who did not, sadly. These patients, however, shaped me into the person that I am today, in the role that I play today. And I am forever grateful for each memory, for every experience. And I am forever grateful for each and every one of you for what you do each and every day. This includes your patients and your families and your fellow nurses. Please remember that the most important person deserving of your time and attention is you. Healing those people include all of you. Enjoy the evening tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again, Christina. Now we will welcome Diane Gottheil, president of the Josh Gottheil Memorial Fund for Lymphoma Research and the mother of a very special young man. Joshua David Gottheil was a young man with a special charm and a big heart. At a young age, he took special pleasure in supporting musicians and bringing the music he loved to others. In junior high and high school, he played drums in rock bands. He also learned the business of promoting and producing rock shows, working to bring a number of bands to perform in his hometown, Champaign-Urbana. Shortly after graduating from high school in 1987, he was diagnosed with lymphoma. Imagine his family's relief when his treatments began showing promise. Josh successfully completed them and moved on with life, forming a new music production company. Sadly, the lymphoma returned, and Josh received a bone marrow transplant at what was then Barnes Hospital. It was during this period that Josh's family, including his mom, Diane, developed the highest gratitude and respect for the oncology nurses who cared for Josh. These nurses exemplified the ideals of their profession, as you all gathered here do today. Their care and concern were evidenced in ways large and small, and always meaningful. Despite undergoing a bone marrow transplant, Josh sadly succumbed to cancer at Barnes on April 4th, 1989, leaving behind a caring family whose gratitude for his nurses continues to this day. The Josh Gottheil Memorial Resiliency Symposium seeks to honor Josh's big heart and the work of oncology nurses then and today who pour themselves into the care of their patients. Representing the Gottheil family and the Josh Gottheil Memorial Fund for Lymphoma Research, Mrs. Diane Gottheil is here to share with you all the deep appreciation patients and their families have for the work that you do. She too wants you to practice the self-care necessary to keep it your best, for your patients, and mostly for yourself. Please welcome Diane.
Thank you, Jade. And thank you for inviting me here to the first Josh Gottheil Memorial Resiliency Symposium. It's an honor to stand before a group of people for whom I have great respect. And though I don't know most of you personally, great affection, and especially affection for those of you I know personally and remember. I'm going to get through what I've written here, but I do have my handkerchief. And I'll begin by telling you that I might cry. I haven't been in St. Louis since April 4th, 1989, the day that my 19-year-old son Josh died, following a 4-month struggle to recover from a bone marrow transplant due to a recurrence of T-cell lymphoma. I was the donor, and his struggle was mostly due to GVH. There's nothing I can say about that those of you here today don't understand. And I won't say much about Josh, much more, because I don't know how I could do that in a short time anyway, except to mention that he was a gem. You can read about him on the website called joshsfund.org, and you'll see something of what I mean by calling him a gem. His death was, of course, devastating for me, for my late husband, Fred, and for Josh's sister, Lisa, who was his best friend. Lisa's here with me today. She came from New York. I picked her up at the airport yesterday, and So glad she's here with me. We three wanted to do something positive in Josh's memory, and as researchers, Fred and I thought at first we'd raise funds for lymphoma research. And so we established the Josh Gottheil Memorial Fund for Lymphoma Research. But as we thought about the fact that research costs hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, we thought that was beyond our capabilities. We needed to find a new focus, and so very soon was obvious to us what we wanted to do. While Josh was at Barnes, we learned a lot about what it means to care for very ill patients and the demands on the nurses who were there for him and for the other patients in the BMT unit. We saw not only the knowledge and skills and professionalism of the nurses, but also their tremendous compassion, and especially in Josh's case, their caring concern. And so we contacted the Oncology Nursing Society of America, and in concert with them every year, nurses working with BMT patients can apply for the Josh Gottheil Memorial Career Development Award. And I'm pleased to mention that in 2011, a Siteman nurse was the recipient of one of these awards. If Christine Rimkus is still here, I'd love to say hello to her. She's here. 2019 will be the 25th year that these awards have been granted, and so over 100 nurses from around the country, and recently one from Canada, and more recently one from India, were recipients of these grants. And I understand they're used primarily to attend your professional meetings and to learn more about state-of-the-art practice. I'm looking forward to hearing soon this year's recipients. But now to today's story. Several years ago, my husband Fred realized one of his dreams. As the guiding light and major force behind Josh's fund, he saw it grow so significantly that we realized we had to be donating more, and so we began to consider a second but related mission. Fred was still teaching, writing, working for Josh's fund, but he became ill, and he died within a year from pancreatic cancer in 2016. So finding the second mission became my responsibility with the help of my daughter, Lisa. But here I must pause in the story to mention some of the major reasons why the fund has grown significantly in 25 years, enabling today's opening event. And listen up, Dina, it's about development. First, Fred was told from day one that if you're going to be a fundraiser, you have to ask, with major emphasis on asking. And friends and family and anyone within reach have to be asked for donations. And the reach should go as far as possible. And what Fred did was reach, especially to students at the University of Illinois, many of whom took his class in economics. He taught big classes. And for many years, they volunteered, getting up sometimes very early in the morning, and they went to the tailgates before the Illinois football games, and they wore these T-shirts that he had made that said, "Help fight cancer," and they'd go around to perfect strangers who were enjoying the tailgate before a football game, and they'd have a manila envelope, and they'd say, "Donate to Josh's fund," and people would reach into their pockets, and they were generous, and they'd give. The manila envelopes, by the way, were filched from the economics department, don't tell, because he never spent a cent of Josh's fund on any of what we had to do. And so I must say that football fans were very generous, and particularly the ones whose lives had been touched by cancer, but also the very cheerful Ohio State fans who knew they were going to beat Illinois that day. Probably Missouri fans, too, would come for games. What else helped the fund grow? I have to mention Fred had a very successful economics textbook that he wrote, and it provided a good share of royalties for Josh's fund. And then he made wise investments of donations received. He never did that with our money, but he did it with Josh's fund. Of course, we all know that that's crucial, but more heartwarming, Josh had been, as mentioned, in the music scene, and bands who loved him had concerts that were fundraisers and benefits for Josh's fund. Family and friends have donated. They've done Facebook birthday fundraisers, and some great nephews have used their bar mitzvah good deed funds to donate. The generosity of all these donors touched us deeply, and in particular, A group of young men in the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity at Illinois have been especially remarkable in devoting their philanthropic work to Josh's Fund for quite a few years now. And they even created the Gottheil Cup, which is an annual hockey tournament fundraiser. And that was especially meaningful to Fred. He was Canadian. And oh yes, while we were here, we became Blues fans. And what timing on this event. I have to also just mention that once when Josh was well enough, Fred took him to a blues practice, and the players came over and met him and heard that he was a patient here. And then afterward, one of the players, Mike Lawler, came to visit him in the BMT unit, and he brought him an autographed stick. And I'm saving that for my grandchildren. And we're cheering for the Blues now, for sure. Fred became a faculty advisor to the SIGEPS, and later he had the honor of being made a Renaissance member. And I remarked, and Sean has heard this, that I'm finally married to a fraternity boy. The SIGEP's particular guiding light was a former student of Fred's and their devoted alum and chapter advisor. More recently, this great supporter of Josh's Fund agreed to become a member of the board, and I love him dearly, and Sean Dalglish is with us here today, and I want to thank him on behalf of what he does and inspiring these boys, and that's a big job, inspiring college boys. Today marks the beginning of the second mission of Josh's Fund, and all I had to do to decide what it should be was to think back what inspired us in the first place. I immediately remembered the amazing nurses that cared for Josh with amazing professionalism. But to this I must add that they showed him love and devotion. And there were quite a few nurses, of course, round the clock, and two of them just touched us deeply, and I'm so happy to say they're here today. They were Josh's nurses in 1989, and I love them both, Sandy and Joanne, and they were our inspiration, and they're the reason we were able to do that, and they're the reason that we're here today with this wonderful group. We all cheered for Josh's recovery. We mourned that he didn't make it. So now, in memory of Josh, but also as a tribute to Fred's tireless effort to grow the fund, the endowment Josh has been established at the Alvin J. Siteman Cancer Center is dedicated to supporting all of you who cheer for your patients. It is my honor to be before you caregivers today, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Diane. As we kick off the Josh Gottheil Memorial Resiliency Program, I don't need to tell you why this topic is critically important to us in the field of nursing and particularly oncology. Taking care of these patients requires a convergence of our minds, our hearts, and our spirits. It's hard, good work. Plus, we live in changing and challenging times. Learning a new electronic medical record, expanding our services, I feel your pain, opening locations, and oh yes, trying to have a life. We all know the mantra, too much to do and too little time. Our keynote speaker could be considered a futurist, as she's authored the first book ever to explore the connection between balance, burnout, and authentic work. In the mid-1980s, that was a topic that was not top of mind. How have times changed? Today, as CEO of the Resiliency Group, our speaker brings us straightforward strategies and mindsets to handle the professional and personal demands on us. She has decades of experience under her belt as a Hall of Fame speaker and an international consultant to organizations that run from hospitals to global pharmaceuticals to financial institutions to the U.S. Armed Forces, from software companies to college administrators. This year, the British-based research firm Gurus International ranks her as the #1 communications guru following a survey of 22,000 businesses and industries. She's so phenomenal, she is a triathlete. Excelling in running, after children, swimming with corporate sharks, and biking on a stationary bike. She never learned to skateboard, never made it as a cheerleader, and flunked college tennis PE class, while the girl with the broken leg got an A. There is no justice. Please welcome the author of 7 books, a lover of all things dark chocolate, from California. Put your hands together and please welcome Eileen McDowell.
You're simply the best.
Let's see.
Better than all the rest.
Got it?
Better than
You recognize the song?
anyone.
All right, let's do it.
You're simply
Thank you. Diane and Liz, thank you so much, what you have done. Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I needed to play that song, and it was hard to hear. Normally, we had it really loud and blasted everybody else. It was, what is the name of the song? Simply the Best. Who sang it? Tina Turner. Tina Turner. Let me tell you why I played that song. Tina Turner, born 1939, the same year as Ted Turner. No relation. So, what I love about Tina Turner, and here we are celebrating Josh, who was a rock and roll guy. Tina Turner, you talk about somebody who's resilient. She was raised by sharecropper parents. Nutbush, Tennessee. Actually, not parents, they were her grandparents. She suffered through a horribly abusive marriage. When she got through that, she became the queen of rock and roll. She has a Grammy Lifetime Award of Distinction. And I want you to know, today, you know, she no longer lives in the United States. She's now in Switzerland, but she has not stopped. Think about how old, 1939. She has had intestinal cancer. She suffered a stroke and has to learn how to walk all over again. How many of you can visualize Tina Turner when she'd get up on a stage and she would rock around? And now she has to learn how to walk. She, to me, is an amazing example that neither age, ethnicity, gender can hold back somebody of talent, drive, and determination, and resiliency. That's the first reason I wanted to play Simply the Best. And then the next reason is because of Diane and Liz, because they believe that you guys are simply the best. They've watched what you have done. They know what kind of pressure you are on. And look at this. I mean, you've got that, that interesting patient record-keeping thing. That is wonderful, terrible. Learning it is epic. So what I understand, you know, you've got patients that you care for, and patients who sometimes love you, and patients who sometimes hate you. And then you wonder, I'm trying so hard, don't they get this? You work so hard. There are days in which you go home and you are so tired, even your crow's feet hurt. I know it. I mean, there are days in which you get up and you say, oh, good God, morning, instead of, good morning, God. And there will be times in which no matter how much you feel devoted to this profession, you know the definition of work. It is the penalty you got for not marrying rich. Now, at least you think you are the only ones who go through this. I want to show you. This was a poster that was in a hospital cafeteria. I think it so describes what's going on. God put me on earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I'll never die. So let me show you a number. I'm going to put a number up. Call out to me. How much is that number? 275 million. You know what that number represents? Which I think is incredible. The number of working days lost each year in the United States due to absenteeism, due to stress. Days, not hours, days. And more I am seeing all the research that comes into my office, particularly the stress is huge among healthcare professionals. And so what we want to do is we want to say, what is it that you have chosen to come here to learn because you know that you have some things that you can do. And so when I say you are simply the best, I want you to acknowledge that. In fact, notice I said you have chosen to be here. There are many things that you could do, but you have chosen to be here. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to teach you the Siteman Cancer and anything else, your own special greeting, and it goes like this. You are simply, like out of this world, 2 thumbs up, the best. Okay? I want you to do it with me right now. You are simply the best. 2 thumbs up. Okay, try it again. All right, now when I say go, here's what I want you to do. To your best ability, I want you to get up. I want you to turn around to any of your colleagues. I want you to go over. I want you to look them right in the eye and say, you are simply the best. You got it? On your mark, go. Up, on your feet, on your feet. On your feet. You are simply the best. Go back to me. You are simply the best. You are simply the best. You are simply the best. We get you to you are simply the best. Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay, so let me tell you, this is the third reason why I wanted to play that song, Simply the Best. Number one, I asked you to get up and I asked you to look in each other's eyes. One of the things that I'm seeing in our work environments is we don't pay attention to each other anymore. We're so busy. We don't look into their eyes. You want to be able to say, how can I be resilient, is you need to understand that everybody wants to feel meaningful. And when I look you in the eye, I'm saying, I know that you're here. So now you have your own secret code. So wherever you are on campus, you don't even have to say anything now. You can just walk, go. Got it? Now you've got colleagues who are not here. So to be fair, you should teach it to them. Because if not, they're going to wonder, what in the world is this woman doing? All right, do it one more time. You are simply the best out of the world. Fabulous. All right, here's the last reason why I asked you to do that. When I told you to get up, when I told you to look at each other and to do this, something changed in this room. What changed? What came up? You got it. Energy came up. At the end of the day, resiliency is all about energy management. It is not bouncing back. It's not bouncing back. There is no such thing as going back as humans. We either stay where we are, or real resilience is that we grow through. We get stronger and wiser on the other side. And you get energy by the connections that you make, or connections that don't work and you are drained and there's nothing left of you. So when I want to talk about resiliency, I want to talk about how do I grow through opportunity or challenge in my life so that I can become stronger on the other side. Now, this is one of the questions I'm asked a lot, and it's this: is resiliency genetic? There are some people who say, I can't do it, I don't have the gene. You have to be born with this resiliency gene. Well, let me tell you what's interesting, the research, and these guys spent some 20 years trying to put this whole thing together. And what they found out is, yes, to some degree, there's a genetic component. There are people whose neurons fire faster into the prefrontal cortex. This is the executive function of the brain that tells you how to respond. But the good news is, in neuroplasticity, we can create new pathways in our brain that will help us become resilient. But notice that the title of this was Cultivating Resiliency. Those pathways don't just happen overnight. You're not going to walk out of this meeting room and say, ooh, I'm resilient. I got it. Not going to happen. You got to practice this stuff. So what my hope is that when I give you some ideas of the connections that you make, that you will walk away with at least 1 or 2 ideas. I'm going to try this, because remember, what fires together, wires together. And that's what we want in our brain. We want to teach ourselves a more powerful way of showing up in a world that is going to constantly be changing around us. And when I say that thing about energy, we were talking about this today at lunch. If you think about when you start a car, and I had to laugh because I just got a new car last year. I've had the same car for 15 years, and when I got in that car, I used to say you put the key in the engine and turn it on, right? How many of you know you don't put a key in the engine anymore? I had no clue. I had no clue. But the truth of the matter is however you start your car, and now I know I push a button, however you start your car, if it's a good connection, the battery starts, the car moves ahead. So I want to talk about how do you make some good connections, but if it's a bad connection, the battery is drained and the car doesn't go anywhere. So we connect in 5 ways. We connect with our head, what are we thinking? We connect with our heart, what are we feeling? We connect with our hands, what do we do? And then we also make connections in 2 other ways. One is with humor and one is with headstones. And I will explain all of those to you. So let's look at that first one. How do you connect with your head? And what I think about connecting with your head is that we talk to ourselves all the time. The problem is we don't pay any attention to what we say. So here's the first thing I'd like you to walk away with, is pay attention to the words that you say to yourself. And one of the most powerful words that we can say to ourselves is, I choose, is more powerful than I have to. I choose is more powerful than I have to. That sounds like a small thing. I'm going to tell you small things. Trust me, it's small things in our life that's going to make all the difference in the world. When my youngest daughter was going out to babysit, I remember her walking out the house and she said, oh, I have to go babysit. I said, no, you don't, Heather. You don't have to go. Call and cancel. But I promised. So you're choosing to keep your promise. Well, I want the money. I said, so you're choosing to, you can see the semantic battle back and forth. About a week later, we're sitting at the dining room table, and I said, oh, I have to go to New York for a client. No, you don't, Mom. Kids will keep you honest, you know? So if you take nothing back, I want you to take this, that I choose me. I did not have to come here today, gang. This is my choice. And you did not have to come here. This is your choice. So every day that you get up, say, what is it that I choose to do? And by the way, the more powerful we become, we look at what we think of as how many multiple options can I create for myself. It's called requisite variety. You want to find how many different ways can I respond to this situation? Because one other way is not enough. Requisite variety comes from the field of biology. And it says that the organism with the greatest number of responses to a given situation is the one that survives. So for example, let's say that I know how to play chess. And Diane, you and I are going to play chess. I know 2 chess moves, and Diane knows 22. Who's going to win at chess? Diane. She's going to win at chess. So when I think about requisite variety, it reminds me years and years ago, I was brought into a company. You can tell it was years ago because I spoke to the corporate people, and then they wanted to know, would I speak to the spouses? And all of the spouses were wives. So I shared with the wives that there's this piece of research that had come across my desk that said passion and hunger produce the same look in a man's face. And a woman sitting right about there where you are looked up at me in absolute horror and said, oh, do you mean all of this time I could have just fed him? That's not requisite variety. You want to have multiple ways, and sometimes it is your colleagues who will say, let me help you. Let me look at another way that you can see it. So the first thing is, what are you saying to yourself, and what do I choose to do, and how many different ways can I choose to respond to this situation? Here's the next thing that will help us all, is do you know what time it is? Do you know what time it is? What time is it? I know everybody's looking at their watch, picking out their cell phone. Well, you know, if I had my druthers, the time is now. The time is now. See, what happens to all of us is that our brains have a tendency not to show up here. We're over here where we're thinking about the past. I could have, I would have, I should have. Why didn't I do this? You know, I feel guilty about all this stuff. It's terrible. Or we're over here in the future worrying about all the things. We invent kind of things. So when you're in the past back here, you have no power. So when you hear someone say things like, oh, well, you mean they're bringing that patient back? I handled him 2 months ago. I remember him. I forgave. I'm not going to let him forget I forgave. Get over it. You have to turn the page because today is a new day. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your hand like this, and I want you just to say, turn the page. Turn the page. Go on, do it. Turn the page. Now, lest you think this woman is an idiot from California making me make these stupid gestures, I will tell you if I can anchor something with a gesture, you will remember it. That's why when you're walking down the campus and you go like this, you know what that means? Now if somebody goes, wah, 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 turn the page. It's another day. It's another day that you have. I found something. It was so interesting. I loved it when Susan called me to ask about coming, and she had found me, I guess, through the internet or someplace like that. I went out and dug some things I hadn't looked at for a long time, and I wrote this poem. See what you think about this. It's called In the Now. The day is here upon us. Today is all we've got. This minute holds eternity, but oh, our minds are fraught with all the thoughts we should have done. Mistakes of yesterday, recalling wrongs, reliving deeds and words that went astray. Or else we go through motions while our thoughts zoom far ahead of things to do, of meetings hence, of possibilities we dread. We eat our food in hurry, we kiss our loves in haste, we blink at dawn, we glance at moon. There is no time to waste. Our calendar is crammed with future things we have to do. We make our list, we see our lengths, our day is never through. And when each year is over, we dismay at all that's past. We shake our heads and wonder, how did time go by so fast? We cannot slow the march of time. And yet there is this plan. If we would live in present now, we'd find a peace at hand. Be present, fully present in each action that we do. Stay mindful, fully mindful of the life around us too. Let the future be a vision, but this moment counts and how. Eternity is in it. May we learn to live in. You got it. And by the way, when you leave today, thank you. Have you ever noticed you find something you hadn't seen in a long time, you go, whoa, crap, that was good. I didn't see it. When you go out today, you will find when you turn in your CEU credits, they've made this into bookmarkers for you. I'm sure you'll be able to have that. So if I want to get out of the past, here's the other thing that concerns me. This concerns me a lot, is when we get to this place of worry. And when we get to this place of worry, what we begin to do is we begin to create scenarios of things we don't want, and then we live there. Mark Twain said, I had 103 catastrophes in my life, only 2 of which actually occurred. And let me say this, I know that as I look around the room, we have predominantly women here. I have some colleagues, sisters, who wrote a book called Why Women Worry. There is no sequel to My Men Worry. We can bring it to an art form, absolute art form. And as I thought about this, I thought we needed to have something that will tell us to stop that worrying, because what happens then is we become negative. Do you have any negative people around you? Perchance? It's rampant in every organization, but I see it in an awful lot of healthcare. And part of it is there's so much in your world that you cannot control. So I came up with something that I think of as beware of red ants. And let me tell you how I got that term, red ants. I have a relative, we're going to call her Mildred. She is one of the most negative, fault-finding persons who could invent anything that's wrong. And my sister and I had gone to pick up Mildred. We got my brother. By the way, when I go to talk to you, you will notice I'm relatively short. I come by it genetically. I have a twin brother, so half of me is a professor at Boston College. We're driving, we're going to go see the wonderful New England colors, and we're on a back road, and suddenly my sister says, wait, oh, stop the car, I want to get out. I want to see that bright blue sky and those leaves and that church weather vane. Susan hops out of the car. In a heartbeat, Mildred says, well, I hope she doesn't stand in red ants. do you even think of that? Now, here's the scary thought. It could be genetic. So I got to tell you, here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to take your fingers like this, and I want you to look at your colleagues around you, and I want you to say out loud, no red ants. No red ants. There's your coat. No red ants. Hold it up in front of your own nose. No red ants. You guys, I promise you, that drains your energy. When you're with negative people, or if you are the negative person, you are a black hole that goes, takes up all the energy. I did work for Baptist Hospital in South Florida. We had 500 nurses one day, 500 nurses the next. And the chief nursing officer came both days, and she said after the second day, she walked in and she said, oh, Eileen, the nurses are running all over this hospital. They're going to go, no, she said, you know, it's gonna help us. We're gonna get out of this. She said, but we got somebody who is so negative, we cannot do this. We have to do. So, to kind of help us anchor this, my colleague in the resiliency group created something that he calls the pickle pledge. I'm gonna put it up here for you. I don't know if you can see this, but you know, people who are negative are like people who went, I'm laying down a pickle. So you're gonna get this when you walk out. And I'm really serious about this. See if you can read this with me. I will turn every complaint into either a blessing or a constructive suggestion. By taking the pickle pledge, I am promising myself that I will no longer waste my time and energy on blaming, complaining, and gossiping, nor will I commiserate with those who steal my energy with their blaming, complaining, and gossiping. What do you think? Yeah? I'm serious. So this is really hard because this is self-reflection. This is self-reflection. So you do not want to be this. And just don't let people get around you. Say, you know what, this is a pickle-free zone. You think it's funny, but it's really true. So these are the things that I think. So here's another thing that will help us when at times it looks challenging is to practice intelligent optimism. Intelligent optimism is reframing. It's where you take something that at face value looks horrible and say, okay, how can I look at this differently? What could I learn? So right now, put your fingers like this, like a picture frame, and say reframe. Look at your colleagues and say reframe. Reframe. And you might need to help each other do this. If somebody says reframe, okay, so no red ants, reframe, turn the page. Today, we have a wonderful example of reframing. When Diane and Lisa lost Josh, they had some choices. They could have spent all kinds of time mourning and saying it's terrible, and it is. But then they said, how can we reframe this in a way that allows other people to grow in honor of Josh, who was this incredibly optimistic, amazing young man? That's a great example of intelligent reframing. So we can all do that. Sometimes we need people to help us say, you know, I need help me reframe. I can't figure out another way, but to look at it differently. And by the way, kids are great at reframing. I was in Saskatoon speaking to early childhood educators, and one of the educators told me, she had little preschoolers, this little kid was coming in dressed as Superman. And she said, honey, Halloween is a week away. You may not wear your Superman costume until we celebrate Halloween. The little kid came in next day, had on khaki pants, a white shirt, and a little tie. She found out later that he told his little buddies, don't tell anyone, I'm Clark Kent. Kids are amazing. So can I reframe? Because if I have a frame that doesn't work for me, I am losing my energy. If I connect with my head in those ways, what's the choice of the words that I'm saying? I choose. Can I no red ants? Can I turn the page? That was then, this is now. Can I reframe? Then how well do we connect with our heart? You know, this is an incredible, and you all know this better than I do, the heart is an incredible energy field. 60,000 miles of vein, capillaries, and arteries within the human heart. We can measure the energy of a heart farther than we can the energy of the brain. But what I love about this word heart, this huge energy, have you noticed this? You can walk into somebody's room and you can feel whether the energy is good or not in it. It didn't come from the brain. And when you walk into a patient's room, or you're there, outpatient, they can tell. They can tell what that energy field is. And notice that at the core of the word heart is what word? What word do you see in the word heart? Air, to hear. That's why I put the word courage. It takes courage to hear. It takes courage to listen. And by the way, the word courage comes from the French word coeur. Coeur de lion, the heart of the lion. It takes courage to listen. So how well will you first listen to yourselves? How many times have you and I noticed we've screwed up or we've stayed in a bad place and our gut told us to get out of it and we didn't pay any attention? Don't tell me I'm the only one that does that. See, we really need, our instincts will tell us when it's time to move on. But it also takes courage to listen to each other. And it takes courage to ask for help from each other. I think sometimes we believe that we have to do all of this on our own, which drains your energy, and you might need help. For example, when I think you need help, ask people. Tell me, you know what, I'm having a really hard day here. Can you help me? Ask for encouragement. And this last one, ask people to tell you, what strengths do you see in me that I don't see? You ever thought of doing that? Well, no, that sounds very conceited, Eileen. I can't do that. You see, we don't see ourselves, but other people can look and say, you know, you don't really realize that, but you did such a good job with that family that came in here. You have a very caring heart, and I just want to tell you I noticed that. Oh, really? What does that do with her level of energy? And I'm serious. We do not see what other people see in us. And if you could ask for that, and that is not permission for you to now tell them everything that's wrong with them when you ask. I decided in the middle of the night, 11 o'clock last night, in the hotel room, I thought I was going to show you a visual representation of how other people see things that we don't see. My mother and my grandmother, her mom, both had severe osteoporosis. Their bones were like styrofoam. So one of the things that I work on a lot is bone density. And there's not a whole lot that I can do with this. Both my mother and grandmother had dementia. There's not a lot I can do about it. My profile is not great. Now I've got some choices here. My choice is, what are the things that I can do that could help do this? And one of the things, not only is exercise for building, it has to be weight bearing to build up bone density, but also now we know that exercise has a lot to do with impacting our brain and our ability to use it. Well, I've been working on upper body strength. Because I realize, you know, if I work with a lot of seniors, you know, you need a lot of upper body strength if you've got to be on a walker. Well, I was seeing nothing, no improvement. I would put my arm out, it was still one of those lunch lady arms. Do you remember that when they'd serve you in the cafeteria and they go slapping you in the face? You know? Well, I had lunch lady arms. And this past year, my husband and I go on a bucket trip to Costa Rica, and I've always wanted to do a zip line. Well, they send the photographer with the group because, of course, they want you to buy the photographs. I was so happy to buy this photograph. I have arms! I would never have seen this. I never asked anybody where I work. I did, am I getting arms? Do you see anything here? Well, this is just a visual representation of the ways in which we could ask each other. If I connect with my heart, if I have the courage to tell people what I see well in them, the courage to ask for help, then the next thing is, who in fact renews your heart? Who renews your heart? Who or what? I mean, how many of us have pets? Aw, and when we come home, right? It's one of those things that, those are all good, valid things. Who renews your heart? And some of us have people who renew our hearts. I'm a SOGPIP, that stands for Sappy Old Grandmother with Pictures in Purse. And that little one is Alicia Litt. She owns me, lock, stock, and barrel. And I know you've got grandchildren too, right? How many of you are grandparents? See, it's different, isn't it? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And this little child has given me the most unique name in all of motherdom. When she was born, my mother was still living, so I couldn't be Nana. So I thought, well, I don't want to be Grandma, Grammy. I'll be Grammy. We would go up to Oregon where they live. I never had a name. She was one. She could say Daddy to my husband, you know, or to Daddy to her daddy. She could say Dida, my husband's name, and I'd look at me. Nothing. I'm the one whose arms she'd jump in, but I had no name. And then when we're up there for her second birthday, and I do what I always do, I say, who's that? Mommy. Who's that? Daddy. Who's that? Dida. I said, who's this? No name. So the next day I walk into the nursery and here this child is standing up in the crib, arms outstanded, hi to all done sipping. So my name is Tu. Works for her, works for me. I walked outside, I said, I have a name, it's Tu. That's who I am, it's Tu. And I found out a week after that, I have a colleague who was born in Hawaii. She said, Eileen, do you know that Tutu Mama is Hawaiian for grandmother? The child is brilliant and speaks a second language. So I just put, you know, this is really tacky and terrible, but I thought I'd show you all of them. And I'm here until I get on that 5:30 a.m. flight tomorrow to go back to California. I'll look at everything that you have. But who renews your heart? And will you make choices to spend time, even short time, with who renews your heart? Because that's what allows you to come back. If I connect with my head in all those ways, with my heart, who renews my heart, taking responsibility for that, for the courage that it is to listen to each other, then how well do I connect with my hands? See, action is the antidote for anxiety. So if you sit here and listen to all this stuff and you walk out and don't change one thing, nothing will make a difference. Remember, this is not a car wash. You're not going to walk out of here signed, sealed, and delivered. What is one thing or two things that you will try? It's hard for you, I realize as I put this up, you can't read the license plate on this car. It was in front of me the other day. It says, I am fixin' to. You know, people say, I'm fixin' to. If you grew up in the South, I'm fixin' to. Well, the problem is fixin' to doesn't do it. It's just fixin'. So my question is, what could you do? Because the truth of the matter is, you can always do one small thing tomorrow to make the difference. There's always something. So when I think about action, look at how can I control the controllable. Sometimes, yeah, it really did happen. Sometimes what happens is that we are trying to fix stuff I cannot fix. I can't fix the health insurance company. I can't change maybe what's going on with medical records right now. Where is my point of control? And my point of control might be how I interpret it. See okay, let me reframe it. This is a learning experience. Somebody goes, what can I control? So when you step back and say, what's taken my energy away? What am I trying to fix that I can't fix? I can't make patient number 47 be lovable, kind, and neat. He hates it. He doesn't want to be here. What I can control is how can I listen to what it's like to be patient 47? And how can I respond to him? And I can control how I walk away, maybe think, gee, I'm glad I'm not in that gentleman's position. What can you control? Here's another thing that you can control. Can you develop horse sense? Horse sense is the ability to say, nay, or whoa, as the case may be. How many of us know we say yes to things that we probably should say no to? How many of us know we're like those little bobbleheads that you see on souped-up cars, and we're going, yes, I'll take that on. Yes, I'll take on that obligation. And I will tell you right now, in this profession, this is a real problem because you care so much. Because you're afraid, if I say no, I'll feel, what's the word? guilty. I'll feel guilty. And it's not just what goes on within the healthcare setting. You know, so one of the greatest gifts that you could give yourself is the grace of being able to say no, or not now, later. Or tell me in 25 words what you want. I don't have 5 hours to listen to you. Let me see what I can do for you. It's amazing when I begin to slow down and look at the things I've said yes to, I realize that I have spent a lot of time on things that for the now of my life are no longer important. And I needed to step back and say no. In this case, it was sitting on a national board. It was also taking care of someone within our neighborhood. Not that I would abandon her, but I would spend way too much time. I would spend way too much time there at the default of my family. So can you develop horse sense? Now, when we said action is the antidote for anxiety, here's something else that is going to energize you. Exercise. How many of you exercise? How many of you have good intentions? Good intentions? You know, it should just be small things. What was that? He what? He's what? Oh, you're fixing to. I'm sorry, I have a hearing loss. I'm fixing, no, I do have a hearing loss. But you know what? The research is showing if you will do any kind of aerobic activity of any intensity for 10 minutes, your stress levels are reduced. Furthermore, they will stay down longer than somebody who said, I'm just exhausted, I'm going to go home and turn on the TV. So the exercise, you have the most gorgeous campus around here to walk, right? I loved it. When I got in yesterday, I did a walk from around where the hotel was. Oh, your trees are just beautiful right now. And you have monster birds. We have robins in California. They're this big. You have robins like this. There was some robin hopping along with a 6-inch worm, I swear, swinging out of his... But can you exercise? Yes, that is Magic Johnson, for those of you who are wondering. That is Magic Johnson. But it can be anything of any intensity. Just allow yourselves to get out and move. And one of the best places to get out and move, if it's not raining here, is for you to go outside. Just like the mindfulness, just walk. Just walk. You're fine. All you want is that little bit that puts you back in control, which actually is connected with this next one, which is practicing mindfulness. And mindfulness is not that you have to sit for 30 minutes and stare at your belly button. It's really that you take time out. And I've seen on some of your floors, you have a quiet room where you can go, where you can sit and just be quiet. Even if you went and stood at one of the windows and looked out, your brain and your heart can start to get back in sync. In fact, I actually believe blowing bubbles is a great way to be mindful because it takes your breath. You have to blow it out. Wouldn't that be interesting if we had bubble stuff around on all the floors? And then you can tell whoever's really upset, they're out there blowing bubbles like crazy. We need to go talk with them. But the mindfulness. And then this was a sign. I walked with a colleague this past weekend. This was a sign that was by our beach. Look at this. Isn't that a great sign? It's a great sign. Here's another thing. Remember, I'm talking about small things that will allow you to feel connected and you can get your energy back. This looks small, but it's really big. Keep a gratitude journal. Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever said was thank you, that would be enough. And I had a wonderful opportunity to talk to your chief nursing officer over here, Deborah. Denise, I'm sorry. Sorry. Denise Murphy. Deborah's her twin sister. And she talked to me about gratitude, and I asked her, would she be willing enough to share with you?
Okay, so in 1993, before I came to Barnes Jewish Hospital, I was really living a dream. I was living on the coast of Maine, married to a beautiful physician. We had 2 gorgeous sons and lived in a beautiful home by the bay. And in less than 10 years, that all fell apart. And I was absolutely devastated and just lost. I had no self-esteem, and I was really frightened, like, how will I rebuild a life for myself and for my sons? And I did that right here in St. Louis, in fact, on this campus. And so I started to feel things that weren't fear and weren't, lack of self-esteem. I started recognizing gratitude. And that, I was so grateful for a day where I felt strong. And I was really grateful for, the friends, the people that I met actually right here that were helping me forge a new path in life. And I was really grateful for learning what it felt like to own my destiny and to not keep looking for somebody else to make my life happy or to make it good. So I was sharing with Eileen that I wake up every single day happy. And sometime during the day, this voice in my head just screams out, "Thank you, God. My life is so good. I'm so grateful." So anyway, thank you for all being here at some point in my path, and thanks for asking me to share that.
Oh, thank you. Give her a hand. Thank you. That's a very vulnerable position for a leader to tell you that they screwed up, that their life was hard, and then they come back and say, "I'm responsible for my own happiness, and I am so grateful." And as you told me, you were grateful for all of the terrible negative things that happened because it put her in a different place. This is where you put things back and you reframe. So I really appreciate you being willing to do that. Thank you so much. But how many of you keep a gratitude journal? How many of you have heard of a gratitude journal? How many of you think this sounds like a bunch of work and I am not doing it? You know what? You have those little tiny moleskin journals I saw over here at the campus, or you can go in Walgreens, just get a little book. And I'm telling you, at the end of the day, I don't care how tired you are, just think of 3 things you're grateful for and just write it down. Just write it down. It's amazing what a difference. Number one, you will sleep better. I mean, maybe some days you're just grateful that you got a bed to put your head on. And maybe some other days I'm grateful that patient 47 actually smiled at me today. I'm grateful that the chief nursing officer shared with me something was going on with her, which makes it easier for me to share with other people. Maybe that's what you're grateful for. When I don't have my gratitude journal with me, but it's at home by my nightstand, and I would tell you tomorrow night when I go to bed, I'm going to write how grateful I am to be here with you. That's one of my great gratitudes, so thank you for that. So when we talk about small things, here's another small thing, is play. Play, oh my gosh, play is the exaltation of the possible. Martin Buber said that. But this gentleman, Dr. Stuart Brown, has done definitive work on play and how it allows us to be resilient. And play, now I got little kids up here, but play can be anything. Play can be blowing those bubbles. When I ask you to go around and do this, you're actually playing with me. You're just playing. That's what you want. Playing can be dancing. It can be singing. It can be, it doesn't have to be formalized play. But what we've discovered that what play does is it allows you to be creative. And when we're creative, we see more options for ourselves. That's the requisite variety that we are looking for. So what do you do for play that just releases the energy? Anybody garden? How many of you, when you garden, it feels like play? How many of you say, "This is a horrible thing and I don't ever want to do it"? That's okay. That's okay. We all have different things. But see, the notion is that you give yourself permission to carve time out. And for me, gardening is one of the things that I consider, for me, play. Because see, what happens if we don't try all these different things, you become very, very grumpy. We don't need you around when you're like that. So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. I want you to celebrate small wins. I'm hoping that you will take 1 or 2 things, and I'm going to try to do this. I'll give myself small goals. You don't have to do everything. Okay, Eileen, I'm going to go run a 10K, and I'm going to exercise every day. No, you're not. Give yourself a small goal. You know what? I'm going to give myself 15 minutes 3 times a week to walk around campus. I'm going to write 3 things in a gratitude journal. I'm going to ask my buddies to tell me when I'm negative and I want them to go like this to me. Whatever it is, start small. It's the small things, because remember, we are retraining our brain with neuroplasticity, so it's not going to train overnight. So what are the actions that you will take to do this? If I connect with my head, my heart, if my hands, what do I do? Here's the fourth one, is to connect with humor. I hope you like this cartoon. We know, all of us in organizational development, that people who can laugh at work are more productive, can do more, feel better about it. What do you do for fun? This actually is from Ben & Jerry's. They have a graveyard for ice cream that didn't make it. If you don't have a sense of humor, you probably don't have a sense. If you think about some of the people that we see in national media, they've never smiled. Their face will break. And I think probably they don't have any sense. It's just hard to read, but this is one of the flavors. It says, "O pair, O mixture of mirth, all mannies did weep when you left the earth." And if you go to Ben & Jerry's in Vermont, they bury their ice cream flavors that stunk, that nobody wanted them. But think what that humor does for their creativity. And when I think about humor helping us when it's difficult, I cared for my mom for the last 6 years of her life. And she had so many things wrong. I lived with my cell phone. I would never have come here if Mom were still living, unless I knew my sister from Los Angeles could come and take my place. Mom lived till 96. I think she did have a great sense of humor. At 88, when she was diagnosed with colon cancer, the surgeon said, "Now, Mary, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to lose your navel." Mom's response, "Shucks, that means I can't carry the flag in the parade." And with all of the different things, I mean, she had 3 broken hips, 3 inoperable hernias. She had pulmonary embolisms, and ended up with a stroke that took out her entire left side. And to help me get through it, I defined humor. And 1 minute Mom is living, 1 minute she's dying. It's like this. So I called her Yo-Yo Ma. "How you doing today, Yo-Yo Ma?" And you just have to laugh at some of this stuff. There's little parts of your brain that they say, they just stay. Parts way far away. They were your static responses growing up. And so if you said to Mom, "Hey, Mary, what you doing today?" "Everybody I can, and twice on Sunday." There's no filter. You just have to laugh at some of this stuff. And if you can laugh and you can find those things, it can also help the families that you are around. And sometimes we just have to look for stuff that's fun and just bring it in. I like to collect signs. So I just brought you a couple of the signs, and people send them to me. I thought this was pretty funny. We know how hard it is at bathing time. If you've ever worked in a long-term care facility, I think this is a pretty good idea. You get an old convertible, put a Joy on it, and run them through the car wash. I think I'd probably be arrested if I did that, but it was a good idea. It's an alternative. This is a sign that's hanging up in IKEA. You all have IKEAs here? Okay, I want you to look at this sign. Really? And now this next one, I think Asha or somebody went way too far, way too far. You don't have to make this stuff up. The universe, you go, we are dumb, dumber, and dumbest. I can't even figure that one out. I have friends in Australia. They have crazy senses of humor in Australia, and they're forever sending me things. This one I didn't have a slide of, but it was looked like a whiteboard outside of what would have been a meeting room, and it said, "Psychic fair canceled. due to unforeseen circumstances. This next sign, I know in my heart of hearts, the manager of this grocery store wanted to write the word assorted and did not have room. Now, do you notice how much better you feel by laughing? See, why can't, even as serious as things are, how much better you feel by laughing? Which brings up, and this is the last part about how do you connect with headstones. And by headstones, what I mean is, why are you here? Why are you here? Because this allows you, this is what will be your touchstone that will allow you to re-energize. And I want to tell you, one of the things that struck me a number of years ago had to do with those little kids that I showed you on the sofa. Because what I didn't tell you was that I've never birthed a child. All of my children are adopted. So that when Holly, my oldest daughter, called to say she was pregnant, I said, Holly, are you sure? Yeah, Mom, we did the home pregnancy test. But Holly, are you sure? Yes, Mom, I have the symptoms. Holly, I don't know the symptoms. This is my first baby. Well, she's my whole wheat earth cookie Oregon child. And she said, would you mind coming up the week after the baby is born? Oh, sure. No problem. I can do this. Not. Sorry, I'll get through this. So I went ahead and accepted work because she said, Mom, first babies are always late. I mean, like I should know. And so I accepted work, and here was the work. I had been hired by a global pharmaceutical company to bring together the heads of regulatory affairs, worldwide regulatory affairs. They had just created this new team, 18 people from around the world. I had 2 days in which I'm supposed to help them figure out how are they going to become a team. Day 1 comes, no word from my husband. Nothing's happened. Day 2, he calls and he says they're going to induce labor. Okay. Now you know how you have a bifurcated brain? One is trying to do this stuff over here, and the other half. It's the end of the day. I hear nothing. And I could legitimately look at 18 people from around the world, and I could say, you will remember this day because you have come so far in coalescing as a unit. And they had. They had made tremendous progress. And I'll remember this day because before this day is out, our daughter will bear our first grandchild. 18 sets of eyes from around the world look at me and say, ja, ist true. Yes, they were Swiss. And I just want you to be there with me with that voice. And they said, will you come? Will you come to dinner with us? Sure, I'll just sit by the phone. We're sitting there, the maitre d'. This is before the ages of all of us having cell phones. The maitre d' says, ma'am, phone call. Yeah, Bill, what? C-section. 10.5 pounds? Little girl, Alicia Lynn. I go back, 18 sets of eyes from around the world look at me and say, so what? Well, well, not so little girl, Alicia Lynn. I no sooner said that than 18 people from around the world jumped on their feet, ordered the champagne, and said, to Alicia Lynn. And I cried big time. Now, here's why I tell you this. 18 people from around the world stood and saluted a child whom they will never see. And what I got is that I believe it's one of the reasons I'm in the world. I believe it's one of the reasons you're in the world. There are things that you will do that will impact children whom you will never see. whether how a kind word that you said to a parent, whether someone you successfully got home to at least have another more 5 years. Right here in this whole institution, you're recreating the way in which we deliver health care with the research, with everything. It's going to impact children whom we will never see. That's a pretty big, why are you here? And then I thought of one other thing. I found it in my file. I haven't brought it out in years, but I thought, this is you. This is you on a today, everyday basis. And it's a book that I have loved for a long time. It's Ram Dass, who wrote a book called How Can I Help? And listen to what he says, because I think this applies to you. Here is the final shift in perspective, which can help release us from burnout, fatigue, exhaustion. We do what we can, yet we cannot really know the final meaning of our actions. Inevitably, we will feel the poignance and despair that arise on those occasions when affliction is not erased. It grows and spreads, cruel and ominous. Despite all of our efforts, the pain of the world will sear and break our hearts because we can no longer keep them closed. We've seen too much. But to some degree or another, we have surrendered into service and are willing to pay the price of compassion. With it comes the joy of a single caring act. With it comes the honor of participating in a generous process in which one rises every day, of being an instrument of love, of singular grace, in whatever form, to whatever end. That's why I truly believe you are the best. Thank you.
You're simply the best. Better than all the rest.
All of you.
I love that. Again, let's just put our hands together in gratitude and thanks for Eileen McGodd.
Thank you. Don't forget it.
Thank you all for joining us in this inaugural Josh Gottheil Memorial Resiliency Program event. A special thanks to the Gottheil family, Missouri Botanical Garden, Move by BJC, Sarah Colby of the BJC Arts and Healthcare Program, and the Goldfarb School of Nursing Ambassadors. If you would like to speak one-on-one with Eileen, she has gladly made herself available out in the lobby for further discussion. As a reminder, please remember to complete and turn in your continuing nursing education evaluation form before leaving, and we will be working on the declaration for you all to have a great day and year in your honor as well. It has been my true pleasure and honor, the best thing I've done all day, to be with you today. Have a great night and an amazing rest of the week. Thank you.